Welcome, seventh graders, to math class. Bow, bow, bow. Today we're going to be learning about ratios and rates, and we are going to use the lesson page in Canvas to help us learn about ratios and rates. We can find these lesson pages in Canvas that help teach us the math if we go to the modules page and we click the button that's right above the homework. So if you scroll down to where it says today's homework, November 12th, that's today, and you click right above it, you won't see this one, but if you'll see a button that has the name of the lesson right above the homework, if you click on that, it pulls up the lesson page that teaches us how to do the math and has examples for us to read through. And by the time we get to the bottom, we will be on our way to becoming experts. Not experts yet, but on our way. All right, ratios and rates. Let's explore this math. In today's lesson, we will be exploring what a ratio is, how to write a ratio for a given situation, and interpreting ratios in context. Ratios are fundamental. They are a fundamental concept. They are so important in math, and they help us compare quantities to each other. They tell us how much of one thing there is compared to another. Ratios can be found literally everywhere, from mixing paint colors to following a recipe in the kitchen to comparing your kill to death ratio with your friends to see who's more correct at Fortnite, my guy. Learning about ratios is not just about numbers, though. It's about understanding relationships and proportions in the world around us. Well, what is a ratio again? I know I've learned it before, but I kind of forgot. What is it? A ratio is a comparison of two quantities that tell us how many times one value contains another. It's expressed as two numbers separately by a colon, like 1 colon 2, the word 2, like 1 to 2, or a fraction, 1 over 2. Like I just said, there's three different ways to write ratios. Writing ratios is easy once you know what you're comparing. Remember, a ratio compares two different quantities, or at least two different quantities. Like if we had 3 boys for every 2 girls in Tom's class, we could write 3 on top of 2, a fraction, 3 colon 2, a colon, or 3 boys to 2 girls with the word 2. When you're writing ratios, make sure you first identify the quantities. What two items are you going to compare first? Like, are you going to compare apples and oranges? Are you going to compare boys to girls? Are you going to compare girls to windows? Are you going to compare boys to chairs? What are you going to compare? Identify the quantities. Second, the order matters. The order in which you write the numbers is important. It is so important. Let's say we have the example in Mr. Smith's class. We want to see what the ratio of students to turtles is. Ooh, to turtles. So there's 25 students in this class, and there's one turtle, one pet turtle. They have a class pet. It's a turtle. It's super cool. Wish we had a pet turtle in our class, but sadly we do not. Okay, I'll stop crying. So they have one turtle, and they have 25 students. Perfect. I got my ratio right. One turtle, 25 students. Except what I just wrote means that there's one student and 25 turtles running loose. Ah! The order matters. The first word, the first word needs to be the first number. And the first number needs to associate with the first word. And same here. So what we should have done is 25 students to one turtle. I know, being a picky porter here, but the order does matter. I would so much rather have 25 of you in my class than have 25 turtles who can't even talk to me. So, okay. Step 3, make sure you use the same units. We'll talk more about this later, like make sure you If you have a question talking about miles, make sure both numbers are talking about miles, not one in miles, one in kilometers. And step 4, express the ratio. Write the ratio using a colon or the word 2 as a fraction. Let's look through some examples. If a recipe calls for 2 cups of flour and 1 cup of sugar, what's the ratio of flour to sugar? Take a snip of this. So step 1, identify what are we trying to find the numbers of? What is the ratio of flour to sugar? So flour to sugar is what we're trying to find the ratio for. Okay, the order matters. So flour needs to be the first number, sugar needs to be the second number. Now let's find our numbers. Looks like this number talks about flour, 2 cups of flour, and this talks about sugar, 1 cup of sugar. So 2 cups of flour. I like using the colon. 1 cup of sugar. Woohoo! Done. If we decide to triple the recipe and use 6 cups of flour, how many cups of sugar will we need? So if we triple it, and now we have 6 cups of flour, how many cups of sugar? Now, what was that special word I used, that vocab word? Triple? What does triple mean? Absolutely. Whoa, big brain alert. Wee-oo. Someone call the big brain police. Triple means times 3. Absolutely. Yeah. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 3 is... Wee-oo. Somebody call the big brain police. Get them over here quick. 6 to 3. Oh, yeah. Now, there's a couple different ways to write ratios, or a couple different kinds of ratios, I mean. There are part-to-part ratios. This compares one part of a group to another part, like if you had 2 apples and 3 oranges. You would write the ratio apples to oranges, 2 to 3, right? 2 apples, 3 oranges, 2 to 3. There's also parts to whole ratios. These compare one part to the entire group. So for that same example of 2 apples and 3 oranges in a fruit bowl, if the question was asking us, what's the ratio of apples to all the fruit? It would be 2 to 5, not 2 to 3, because there are 5 total pieces of fruit. So there's a difference. Make sure you're on the lookout for these. Is it a part-to-part ratio question or parts to whole? Are you trying to see what's the ratio of boys to girls, or what's the ratio of boys to the whole class? That's kind of what this example is talking about. And let's work through that. The ratio of boys to girls in Mrs. Starling's class is 8 to 17. What does this ratio represent? Well, 8 is the first number, and in this ratio, it says boys to girls is 8 to 17. So boys is 8 and girls is 17. Check, answered that part of the question. And what is the ratio of girls to total students? Well, remember the order matters. So girls to total students. Girls to total students. There are 17 girls, colon. How many total students are there? Well, there's 17 girls and 8 boys. So that would give us 25 total students. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we talked about ratios. Now let's talk about rates. Writing rates is easy once you know what you're comparing. Remember, a rate always compares 2 different units. Generally, we write a rate as a fraction as we are dividing a total into parts. Like dividing 15 miles we biked into the 3 hours we were biking to find how many miles we biked in 3 hours. Like 15 miles per 3 hours is represented as 15 on top of 3. So kind of like a ratio. Rates and ratios are pretty similar. Interpreting rates means understanding what they tell us about the relationship between 2 things. Again, kind of like ratios. If a train travels at 200 miles in 4 hours, this tells us how fast the train is going, like 200 miles, 4 hours, miles over hours. 2 pounds of bananas, that cost $1.50. The rate is 1.50 on top of 2 for cents per pound. Cents on top, pounds on bottom. This question is asking for students per classroom. So the student's number goes first, then the classroom number goes second. Not always does the first number you run into in your sentence go on top of this division sentence. Okay, not always does it make a division sentence go first in our ratio. Here's example 3, baking cookies. If it takes 2.5 cups of flour to make 25 cookies, what is the rate of flours per cookie? Well, it would be 2.5 for the flours. That's our first word that comes, so that's the first number. Per cookie, 25 would be the second number. So 2.5 on top of 25. That's what it says down here. Sweet. Now let's skip example 4 and let's talk about unit rates. To write a unit rate, you divide the first quantity by the second quantity, making sure the second quantity is 1. Here's how you do it. Step 1, identify the quantities you're comparing, just like we do for ratios. Step 2, divide the first quantity by the second quantity. Step 3, write the result with the unit. So rates and ratios literally are the same thing. They are the same thing, but rates have to do with like miles, hours, distance. They have the word per in them, but they're pretty similar. Rates, ratios are pretty similar. But unit rates is where it gets different, because that's when you start to talk about how many feet per mile, how many jumps per second. So let's turn all of these rates into unit rates. So here's a rate, but to get a unit rate, our lesson page told us to do the first number divided by the second number. So 200 divided by 4, which would be 50 miles per hour. Miles per hour. This is $1.50 per 2 pounds, but to find the unit rate, we would do 1.50 divided by 2, which is $0.75 per pound. Unit rate, because the second number is 1. 50 miles per hour, per 1 hour. 75 cents per pound, 1 pound. So ratios compare things, rates compare things, but unit rates are different because unit rates have the second number being 1, like miles per hour, pages per hour, dollars per pound. We are going to practice this math more today, playing a game kit together in class. If you want more practice, like more examples, look at this. We only went through 3 of the examples on the lesson page, and there are 7 examples here to read through. What? There's also the homework walkthrough video. But we're going to practice this idea of ratios, rates, unit rates, playing a game kit. Good luck, class. So excited for you.